Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Kyle Juice Michalski, Quinten Q Krzysko, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Bears on Tap. This is the post-game show. We're ready to talk about everything we watched this afternoon. And I'm joined by Sonny Verma. How are you doing tonight, Sonny?
Doing good. 1-0, just like we predicted. Game went exactly how we all thought it was going to go. You know,
perfect script. Yeah, no, it was. I don't think this one was quite how any of us drew it up. And I mean, I do want to say, though, we both talked about this being an ugly game coming into it, and that we thought, it's not going to be the offensive explosion that I think a lot of people are hoping for. And we saw that play out. I mean, we wanted a little more, and we'll get into that soon, but I think it was a little uglier tthan either you or I expected.
24-17 makes sense. I think my final score projection was 2013. So, a 7-point Bears win.
Yeah, I had 24-20. Like it was.
But the script, that's not how I envisioned all of it happening. And, I'm looking forward to really getting your thoughts on what the game that we just saw.
So first thing with that, I want to just kind of walk through what the flow of the game was. So, I mean, the first 4 possessions between the Bears and the Titans, it was 4 straight punts. No first downs, 4 straight 3-and-outs before Tennessee marches 79 yards for a touchdown. And at this point, I mean, it feels like it's the end of the first quarter. And to me, it feels like, I feel like for Twitter, we're sitting there going, the world's crumbling. We gave up a touchdown and we haven't scored, and we've had the ball twice already. So it was kind of doom and gloom feeling at that point. Then Tennessee gets the ball back after another 3-and-out pretty much. Then we get the Velis, the fumble. Man, that felt so far removed by the end of the game that I almost forgot about it.
Oh my gosh.
How did you feel when that happened, Sonny?
For the first time in months, I was angry at Ryan Poles again.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I had turned around my opinion on Velis and you know what? Maybe this new position switch, this is all going to work. But then to have that happen immediately when there was just so little going for the Bears anyway, and then to have that happen, it was just one of those really what was the rumor that he had to have a 4th-round pick for Velis? It's just this didn't have to happen. And Again, I think at that point, the first half was just so incredibly frustrating. We talked about this in the pregame. We were so optimistic about this Bears team. We talked about how this wasn't going to be the classic Bears type of team. We were actually loaded when it comes to talent on the offensive side of the football. And guess what? This ended up being the prototypical, exactly how the Bears have won for the dominant part of their entire franchise, which, is ironic at the end.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I mean, I feel like after that Velis fumble, it was just really the whole world was burning. I said it was crumbling down before that. Then it was just you lit those remains on fire at that point. It was just there's no getting out of this. But big kudos to the defense. Holds them to 3 points right there when they get the ball at the 20.
Mm-hmm.
Huge spot from the defense to do that. And then we go on there, another 3-and-out from the offense. Tennessee goes down and gets another touchdown, 73-yard drive. And at this point, again, something we were talking about in the pregame, Tennessee leaned heavily on that left side of the offensive line. They said, we've got these guys where we want them. We're just going to keep going at this spot because we know we have the size advantage. We know we have the power advantage, which roster-wise is clear. There's nothing you can do about that. The Bears defense is structured to play a style of football that's the style of football that they play. That's the style of player that they need. And it's not going to match up against those big power blockers as well, especially early in the game. But Tennessee gets that touchdown, going to half, down 17-0. And I was in a group chat, and I messaged like, one. And this was right after I put a money line bet on the Bears to win at halftime. And I was like, one, Bears had a huge disadvantage coming into this game. Mystery box scheme. You don't know what Callahan's going to run on offense. You don't even know what going to run on defense. Neither of these guys had ever called plays before. All you can go off of is Callahan's time with Joe Burrow, and Will Levis is not Joe Burrow. Like, there's going to be differences here. And the way that I read the first half was the Bears expected Tennessee to be playing a certain style of football that they very much weren't playing. And at halftime, they had to go in and adjust to change what they were doing to punch back at what Tennessee was doing.
I know the story is going to be the 0 points the defense allowed in the second half, but I honestly don't think they played all that bad in the first half either. I mean, Will Levis is a bad quarterback. That's just simply my opinion. Nothing changed my mind from watching that game earlier today. He's a guy who can't beat you with his arm. Every single time he had to make a decision, again, you can see him overthink. They were able to get first downs with either their running game or Will Levis looking around, not being able to find someone, realizing there's an open field ahead of him, and being able to get, I think he ended up with 35, 40 yards rushing. And then, we talk about the Jaylon Jones fumble. They got 3 points from that. I know it was frustrating on the defensive side, but I think a lot of that was also because we weren't scoring. The fact that we were at 0 and Tennessee, it's not like Tennessee is going to be one of the worst teams in the league, at least in my opinion. I think they're a team that's going to win probably 6 to 8 games this year. And so, the defense was the story of this game. The first half, it looked like we were struggling a little bit more than I actually think we were.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it felt worse than it ever did. I mean, ultimately, the defense gave up 14 points. 3 of those points were the Levis fumble, and really, they were getting no help from the offense. They were on the field what felt like the whole first half. To give up 14 points, I think they managed it pretty well, especially when you think about some of the weapons that Tennessee has. D-Hop was playing shell of himself, but he was still out there. Ridley made some nice plays throughout the game, and they had, like I said, that left side of the offensive line that can just bully almost anyone in the NFL. Like that, that is a really strong left side of the offensive line. The right side, a bit different of a story. But the left side, for them to be able to come back in the second half and do what they did to take that away was really impressive for me. And I think that was halftime adjustments. That was them saying, so actually I'll say what I was about to say for when we review the keys to victory. But so coming out second half, Bears lose 3 yards in 5 plays and punt, but the defense forces a punt, and we get what was his name? The edge rusher that was on the end of the roster. Hardy blocks the punt. Jonathan Owens recovers it, takes it for 6. Defense right back out on the field. And Sonny, was this just like a little glimmer of hope, or was this you saying we're back?
Truthfully, okay, so that first half, all things considered, was not a fun first half, right? So my mindset was, it kind of made me flash back to my 30 plus years as a Bears fan. It's like, hey, this is actually kind of what we do. Tennessee's not a very good football team. I've seen enough of their quarterback now to know that he is not going to be the guy to beat us. So when Jonathan Owens, who I'm going to bring up later on in this episode, when he returned that and got us to within 7, my mindset was, we're only 1 touchdown down. But this could have been arguably one of the worst halves that the Bears are going to have this season, especially offensively. And we are only down 1 touchdown right now. So I was optimistic. I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens. Let's see if the defense settles down. I'm not the only one in the world, but obviously in the pregame, I was talking about how I can see this as being a top 5 defense in the league, especially after how they ended the year last year. And so I have confidence on that side of the football because I've seen it. I had confidence on the offensive side of the football because I was projecting it. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't see that happen. But I laugh thinking about this now. I was more confident thinking, because I have so much faith in that offense, that there's no way they can play as bad in the first half or in the second half as they just did in that first half. Little did I know.
They got better.
The bar wasn't set very high.
Well, I mean, even I kind of glossed over this in the first half, but, I mean, they had, after they had a big kick return from DeAndre Carter at one point, and they were in the red zone. Caleb dropped the ball right into Keenan Allen's hands, and it just slipped back out. It just, if that ball is caught, or one of the first half overthrows that Caleb had downfield wasn't an overthrow, we could be talking a whole different vibe about Caleb right now.
For sure.
But if it's in butts were fruits and nuts, we'd all have a happy Christmas or something like that. I don't know the phrase, but like that's how I feel about that. It's like if it didn't happen, you can compare a projection of, if that happened, Caleb would be equal to like CJ Stroud's first game or something, which his game isn't that far off from CJ Stroud's first game, but that was also against the Ravens. But that's a whole nother thing. Just any other quarterback's name you want to throw in there. Yeah. But then you have to go back and look at that tape and say, well, did they have the same thing happen? It's like it all kind of turns into nothing by then. But anyways, back to what happened in the game. So Bears now down 17-10, and pretty boring next few series, really. Like, I mean, edge of your seat because Bears only down a touchdown, but like 3 and out from the Titans, 3 and out from the Bears, 3 and out from the Titans. Bears drive 44 yards on 11 plays to get into Tennessee territory, Tennessee 32. They stall out there after just a disappointing moment is the only way I can describe it, of, and who knows, maybe there was something weird with the snap. Maybe the snap count was off, but Caleb drops the shotgun snap, picks it up, almost saves the play, but overthrows his man in the end zone. What kind of emotion were you going through in that moment, Sonny, of like, because they switched to hurry up, and Eberflus was talking about this some after the game, that they went to hurry up there, and Caleb's really comfortable in hurry up, and you could see it. I was texting friends at that point, like, it feels like something just clicked for him. Like, this suddenly looks like the Caleb that we thought we were going to be getting.
Well, if you recall, Q, when the game started, a lot of times when they cut to Caleb, he kept, signaling, hey, give me the play. Like, it looked like he wanted to do that hurry up style. So I actually had that thought to myself that maybe at some point, while either he was, at the sidelines or maybe at halftime, he talked about, hey, guys, like, let me make some quick plays, get in the flow. I don't like to wait in between as long as we did. But, I did want to go over something you kind of glossed over, how, it's just a, quick 3 and out here, 3 and out there, 3 and out there. You say it very quickly, but I want to hear your thoughts. Obviously, we didn't watch the game together, but every single time we got the ball, I literally told a Bears fan next to me, I was like, okay, here's where the offense needs to come through. Show us something. Let's get some points on the board. Show me something to be positive about. 3 plays later, it's another punt. So, again, the longer the game went, the more the sense of frustration was getting a little high. And so that's why when it seemed like we were making progress, to see it get kind of just deflated there with that, the mishandled snap, reminded me of a couple of things from the last couple of years Bears quarterback.
That moment kind of felt, it was deflating in that similar way that we saw a lot of times with Fields. And it was almost like after this game ended, I tweeted out my final thoughts, and a Titans fan commented on it, like saying that, this one hurt a lot. And like, it made me think about, like, as Bears fans, we've been on the other end of this game about 5 times in the last 2 years.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not an unfamiliar thing to us at this point.
But that's why ultimately, you got to enjoy this victory a little bit more, right? Like, hopefully this is kind of a signal that we've kind of gone over the edge in the sense where, like, over the, we're at the point where we win these sort of games now instead of keep letting them get away. That's what you want good teams to do, right? That's kind of the journey to becoming a great team, is losing those close games to eventually figuring it out and starting to win. That's how like a 7-9 or 7-10 record turns into a 10-7 record.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you think back to like the Denver game last year, right? Mm-hmm. That's that exact thing. All of a sudden, you're not a 7-win team; you're an 8-win team. They had another one like that where you're not an 8-win team, now you're a 9-win team, and like that confidence of being in a close game where it feels like everything is going wrong for you, and not feeling desperate out of that. That's real. There's a human effect in this game. Now, after that field goal. Or after that, we get a great stand by the defense. 5 plays, 3 yards. Darrell Taylor just being a demon.
He looked good.
He did.
Yeah, no, I was going to say he looked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean that's trending to look like an outstanding pickup for a 6th-round pick from Ryan Poles, but forces the fumble on Will Levis. Awesome play, and then Bears get the ball back. Bantam kicking a field goal after, not doing a lot on offense. And it kind of came down to the offensive line at this point. A lot of it, I feel like some of the later offensive throws were just like, we can't block these guys. So we just need to figure out how to stay in this. Bears get a field goal. Now they're down by 1, 17-16 game. And this is where Darrell Taylor comes back big again. I think it was Darrell Taylor, or no, it was DeMarcus Walker who came up big on this. He was inside at 3 technique, does a little arm over move on Peter Skoronski, gets a free run straight at Will Levis and is taking him down. Will Levis tosses it up right into Tyrique Stevenson's hands. Tyrique Stevenson gets the 6. Bears are suddenly covering the spread.
Also, it was a good day to have the Bears defense and special teams if you play fantasy football. I realized a long time ago that I'm never going to win any of my fantasy leagues. And so just out of pure entertainment, I always draft the Bears defense just because I know I'm going to watch the game anyway. And, big shout out to Eberflus and that defensive side of the football who are going to lead me to a week 1 victory.
Yeah. And then so from there, defense stops them again. Bears burn off 3 minutes off the clock before punting, and Will Levis ends the game with yet another interception while under duress, and Bears are able to kneel it out. Bears are undefeated. We're here. It's not the way we expected it to happen, but it still happened, and there's reasons for optimism here. Right. Sonny, what are your overall feelings after this game? What are your takeaways from it?
Again, it's funny. If you told us right as soon as we were done with our pregame, hey, final score, Bears 24, Titans 17, you and I would be like, we nailed it. Perfect. Q, high five. We're going to get famous off of all this. But, it's one of those where I do have a lot of questions, but I'm an eternal optimist as it is. For me, and I think we're going to talk about this soon, I don't think Caleb Williams is going to play this badly from here on out. I hope this is his worst game, at least of the season, or at least of the next couple seasons. So keeping that in mind, with 0 offensive scores, we still beat a team that we should beat. And so for me, we now have, you said it perfectly. The coaching staff was kind of at a mismatch in the sense where they didn't necessarily know what to game plan for. We're not going to have that issue next week, with the Texans. Like, we know, like, that's game tape we can look over from last year and the year previous. This was kind of a blind test, right, for us. And with a brand new starting quarterback, we didn't project to make some of the missed throws that he happened to make. Like you said, there's a version of this game where this was a Bears blowout. because really, the defense corrected itself in the second half in the sense where the secondary to me was always playing pretty decently. Even in the first half, Will Levis was getting his rushes because he couldn't find that wide receiver, and the field just opened up for him. In the second half, they corrected that, or they got to him quicker. I think you play this game 10 times, the Bears win, honestly, 7, 8 times. And this version was simply one of the worst case scenarios for the Bears. And we still came out with the victory. And as a Bears fan, as one who has playoff aspirations, sometimes you're just going to have a couple of these every season.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. And man, I can't help but feel like, I mean, I'm sitting here going, it's going to get better, right? Like it's that my initial reaction to this game, to watching Caleb is it's going to get better. Nothing that I saw out there today, minus the sack, which was bad, the 19-yard sack.
Oh, yeah.
Was anything that the rest of it was not on his college tape. Like it was all stuff that was new. And a guy who started as many games as he did, to me, those aren't lasting issues. Those are nerves. And I have to believe guy played at Oklahoma and USC. He's going to get over the nerves, right? He's been in a big spotlight before, but that was a little different. Like it was something that he'd never experienced before. And experience in the NFL matters a lot. So getting through the first game unscathed, no turnovers, get the victory, to me, that's helpful. That's helpful for me to see it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that there's nothing to be worried about with it, right? Like, he didn't play well.
No.
That's enough to make you worry. But
I'll raise you even higher. He played bad.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not even he didn't play well. It's not like he played like an average quarterback. No, he was a detriment to the offense today. Yeah,
and there were inaccuracies. And I'm not just talking the overthrows. Some of his ball placement was off, and that's stuff that, again, I think that comes down more to first career NFL start in week 1 after being number 1 pick. In an ideal world, you don't see you don't see that happen. But it does happen. I'm not worried about it until I see it for next week, and then I'll start to get a little concerned about it. But until then, I'm willing to mostly write that off. The only thing that the only new worry I have is he needs to adjust his arm angles to get past the line of scrimmage. A lot of batted passes today. He's tall enough. We know that. He's like 6 foot. He came in at the combine there. But Kyler Murray can do it at 5'10". You know, I think Caleb will be able to figure that out. But it's something that he does need to figure out, because that is not a way to win. Like that, there were 4 batted passes maybe, and it's just that's killer. Taking no yards in a play where you should be getting yards is really impactful to your offense.
And that actually had me wondering if, like, it added to his nervousness a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, how often did that happen to him in college? Usually he's, again, more just free-flowing, making plays here and there. Obviously, he played in the preseason, but regular season NFL football, everyone is bigger, everyone is faster than anything you've ever done. You may have been the best quarterback in college football, but now you're playing up against 11 guys on the other side of the field who are the best player on their college football team. You're not taking advantages of, guys on UCLA who have no NFL future. No, you're talking about, just all NCAA guys on the other side. So it takes time to adjust that. And so for me, those couple overthrows, at least to start the game, and you add on the fact that it seemed like the defensive line was in his face and knocking down balls. For me, as much as he says he doesn't feel nerves, you saw, at least for a split second, you saw that, possibly, and it's, of course, just human nature for him to be like, oh, this is a little different.
Yeah, because it is, right? You're at the college level, your offensive linemen are not, on average, are not going to be as tall as they are in the NFL. The defensive line, probably not as tall, probably not as long of arms, and as able to get their hands up in those passing lanes. It changes stuff. And I can't help but wonder if some of the accuracy issues and overthrow issues did have a little bit to do with those tip passes. And again, that does bring me back to a little bit like we didn't see the inaccuracies in college. We didn't see the tip passes in college. Are those kind of hand in hand? But again, Caleb has the arm talent to figure it out. Kyler Murray's able to do it. I'm not too worried about Caleb's ability to do it, but it is something that needs to be fixed and needs to be thought about, going into the next game.
Like you mentioned, I think he made the right throws. He just didn't make good throws. Mm-hmm. And that's something I'm not worried about really with Caleb. So that's why I'm kind of agreeing with you in the sense where I think this was just a bad game and hopefully, one of the worst games that he's going to have in his career, but he's going to go back. And this is another reason I'm super grateful the Bears came out with the victory. Can you imagine if that whole game went the way that first half went?
Yeah.
The entire story would be like, Caleb, bust, Bears, no offense. Here we go. Why did they might as well have kept Fields, and gotten all these assets for Caleb, all that. We get to celebrate now. Bears fans, we're almost laughing about it. Oh yeah, Caleb, bad game, but you know what? Here, this is what we do. Defense, special teams. We're optimistic being 1-0. Things could have been a lot worse if we're 0-1 right now, and all of a sudden Caleb is really under a microscope. Because right now we're just sitting here saying, hey, Caleb was a negative spot on the offense, but it's going to get better. We'll be fine. We still came out with the victory. If we were 0-1 right now and we only scored 3 or 10 points with that being a defensive score, and we lost to what's perceived to be not a very good Tennessee Titans team, all of a sudden Bears Nation is like, oh my gosh, here we go again. All that optimism out the window. Can we get to 500? Did we screw up another quarterback, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I haven't fact checked it, so I'm just betting on this, or I have a feeling that Caleb is probably one of the first, if not the first, rookie quarterback to ever come in week 1 and get a fourth quarter comeback in his first career game.
You know what? If anyone's going to figure out that stat, it's going to be you probably within the next 24, 48 hours. So, but
it's not a deserved fourth quarter comeback, but it is a fourth quarter comeback.
Technically, let's be technical here. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Now, moving on from that segment, let's review some of the keys to the game that we had written out over at ontapsportsnet.com, where you will have keys to the game every single week, along with a little bit of a roster summary for the opponent. And the first key to the game that I had here was that the Bears needed to find ways to beat the blitz. And truly, I don't think they did a good job of this, but I will say Caleb only took 2 sacks. It's not like they were getting destroyed by the blitz. He only took 2 sacks. So they weren't having these massive negatives from the blitz, but they weren't beating it either. They were below average against the blitz, but it didn't torpedo the game.
Right. I do wonder what our average per play was in particular in that first half, because, again, the longer plays Caleb was just straight up missing. And I think the blitz looked worse because every quick, whether it's screen pass or whatever we decided to do, seemingly the Bears player ran into a Titan, which again is what kind of made the offense looks as frustrating as it did.
Yeah. Well, and one of the big items I had on here with this was, what does beating the blitz mean, right? It means your quarterback has good answers to replicate the area, get the ball to the area that the defender just vacated. It means that the biggest thing to me with it was when Tennessee is sending 5 guys or more, Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons have one-on-ones, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you're keeping a running back or a tight end in to protect, which the Bears didn't do a ton of. So that severely impacted this entire game. Tavondre Sweat dang near wrecked the Bears' entire game plan, which I had a 3rd round grade on Tavondre Sweat, I think late 3rd round, and that was even before all the stuff off the field came out, and I dropped him a little lower. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was
a lot of people were wrong.
This dude is going to be a problem for pretty much every team in the NFL except for maybe the Rams, because the Rams have like a 330-pound center who can actually stand up to this guy. When you have a guy 365 pounds, that's 80 pounds more than Coleman Shelton. Yeah. So that is, for reference, Deebo Samuel weighs what, 212, 210, something like that? That's a 300-pounder up against Deebo Samuel. That's the difference between Coleman Shelton and T'Vondre Sweat.
Yeah, wow.
So like when you're out there, and I'm not going to sit here and stand for Coleman Shelton and try to tell you he's this great center. I think he's about a league average, maybe slightly below average center.
I'm curious to see what his PFF grade is going to be after this game.
It's probably going to suck because you know what? If Deebo Samuel's trying to block Javon Dexter, he's not going to do a very good job.
Fair. Like
that's the difference that we're talking about here. It's wild. It is I don't think enough people realize how big that difference is. There's only one or two guys over 350 in the NFL. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys don't even approach that, at least not listed weight. Yeah. I mean, so someone said to me pregame when I tweeted something out about this being my biggest match of the game, Sweat versus Coleman Shelton. Someone said to me, I'm not worried about it because Coleman Shelton faces Andrew Billings every day in practice. Andrew Billings weighs 305 pounds, but he's 5'11", so it looks much bigger than it is. Like, you're still talking about a 60-pound difference there. It's T'Vondre Sweat, and most centers in the league are probably 305 max. A lot of them are sub 300, at least actual weight, maybe not listed weight. And Sweat's going to be a problem for people this year. So, like, I'm not as devastated about Coleman Shelton showing as I think some people will be, just because he was up against it. Some of the guard play next to him, I thought, let it down a little bit. Like Olin Cruz tweeted something out about like he wonders if this is why Nate Davis was benched. It was because Coleman Shelton on that 19-yard sack. Coleman Shelton gets literally like he's going to the left trying to get half the man on the block, and his punch does nothing. On T'Vondre Sweat. But it also looks like Coleman Shelton is expecting to be able to pass some of him off to Nate Davis, and Nate Davis is over here. Like, so it looked like there were some miscommunications there that I thought made Coleman Shelton look a bit worse than it was. He didn't have a good game. I'm not sitting here trying to say that. But I think that there was some communication stuff in the O-line that does need to be cleaned up there. But so back to the key of the game, being the blitz, they get, I mean, if I'm putting a letter grade out, they probably get a D on that for me, and it would be an F if it wasn't for, you know, the lack of sacks that they actually took out of it. But the fact that they didn't make many positive plays out of it makes it pretty tough to give them much more than a D at that point. The next key of the game, takeaways. I said they need to be able to generate pressure. I thought they'd do it using stunts. I didn't notice a ton of stunts and loops. I just really the new acquisition, Darrell Taylor, he created a lot of the turnovers, the takeaways. I mean, again, kudos to I lost his name, the edge rusher who made the end of the roster, who blocks the punt. Yeah, to Daniel Hardy creating that one on his own, and then Darrell Taylor creating two different turnovers with the fumble and the pick, where he was all over Will Levis, and then DeMarcus Walker. I always want to say DeMarcus Robinson. That's an LA Rams receiver. It's like, this guy's been on the roster 2 years. I know his name. Why am I still want to say DeMarcus Robinson? DeMarcus Walker creating the last one. Like, there was a lot of good pressure that they created, and they didn't use as many stunts as I expected, which makes me a little more optimistic about this pass rush. When I was in the first half, I was in the dumps about this pass rush. I was like, they're getting nothing. Like, Sweat, they're putting extra bodies on Sweat, and they're getting nothing from the other guys. And then Darrell Taylor came in and got after it. So creating those takeaways was a huge, huge factor there. Do you have any thoughts on that, Sonny?
No, basically what you said, in the sense where, I thought the secondary, the coverage was just fine in the first half too. It's one of those where we were able to take the ball away in the second half because Will Levis was forced to make some throws that he's not capable of making. In the first half, Will Levis just decided to keep the ball and, take 7 to 10 yards on a rush. We didn't let them do that in the second half. And Will Levis was like, okay, well, I got to make a throw now. And the defense was like, yeah, well, we'll just go ahead and take the ball now. Like, I think you're going to allude to it. That it was in the scouting report that, hey, if Will's going to go down, he's going to try to force something. And guess what? The Bears are ready for that. They're prepared for that. And they executed on that.
Yeah, and I think that's in our pregame show coming up this week. It'll be an interesting conversation of how do you do that against CJ Stroud? Because doing it against Will Levis is one thing. Getting CJ Stroud to give you those football, a whole different thing. But anyways, final key to victory that I had was make the Titans pay to play bully ball. Because, there were all these reports about Brian Callahan coming in here with a West Coast offense, going to sling the football around. And I was looking at the roster and just thinking, if I were Brian Callahan and I could be in a pretty neutral game situation where it's 0-0 or still a 1-score game or I'm in the lead, I don't know why I would do anything except for run behind these two massive bullies in J.C. Latham and Peter Skoronski. And that's what they did.
Yep.
The entire first half. And it was starting to look really ugly. Like they get anything they wanted. And again, I think that's where the game plan came in of they didn't know what to expect. They had to prepare for anything and everything. Go in half, make some adjustments to how they're playing defense. And one of the parts of this key was don't try to out-bully them. You're not going to be able to, right? You just can't match that size power. They're going to be able to create holes. What needs to happen is your linebackers, your safeties, your nickel corner, they need to be filling these spots before the blocker can get there, right? They need to be on attack, and they need to be smart and fast. They need to know where they're going, get there fast, and be on attack mode. And the second half, once they knew what to anticipate more, once they had a good idea for what this offense was doing, what they were trying to set up through what they were doing, they did just that. They were filling those run lanes before the blockers could get to them. They were just flying into the run lanes to the ball carrier, taking him down aggressively. And I think the first half, second half, was night and day from this standpoint of not making them pay to play bully ball. Because the second half, they made them pay.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that as I was watching the game. One of the benefits of me doing these shows with you now is I get to pick your brain a little bit in the pregame. And then when I see it on the field, during the game, it's like, I think Q kind of referenced that. So it's good to have smart friends, Q. But you're right. In the second half, it seemed like they went back to the drawing board and hey, guys, they kind of reinforced the idea of what they kind of needed to do. And the difference is in the second half, they were able to execute on it.
Yeah. And don't make me out to seem too smart, because then we'll get too many people listening to me, and they'll be able to say, well, you said this, and they did the opposite in a few weeks. And I'll be like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to get some wrong. Absolutely. But moving down this, some of the key players to the game that we had within this was, DeAndre Swift. We thought he was going to be big in space. I think clearly the Bears did too. And really, when I was watching it, the first half, it felt to me like the Bears really thought they could win the trenches. And that was their plan. And it didn't work offensively or defensively, really. But defensively, like we just got to, I think that they had an idea that they weren't going to be able to, but they had to adjust to what they saw before they could actually do anything about it. And on offense, DeAndre Swift he made some nice plays. That hurdle was insane.
Oh my gosh. Talk about a play of the game type of that's probably the one play that's going to show up on the positive side for the Bears offense in all the highlight videos.
Yeah, no, that play was sick. But outside of that, I felt like he was key to the game plan, but they couldn't get it going because Tavondre Sweat was just blowing everything up. And Jeffrey Simmons, they both deserve a lot to do there.
Well, I would argue even what's the other kid's name? Homer? When Homer came in, I think he had a couple rushes and he was able to get 10. It was nice to see that because it showed that just a different look, right? Because as you said, Swift just wasn't getting anything done. And so when they did bring in Homer for a little bit, he had a couple rushes. I think, what did he finish with? 10, 15 yards or so.
Something like that.
It's like, yeah, and I just saw Swift 10 for 30, not the game that we expected. Obviously both of us. So again, you just talked about this 2 minutes ago, us not being, us getting a couple things wrong. We were wrong on this one. Clearly we were wrong on it. Swift didn't have a great game at all, but hopefully it's all on the way up from here on out.
Well, and here's what I would say to that too. We knew DeAndre Swift was going to be a big part of the game plan. Titans sure as hell knew it, Fair. So they said, we're going to take that away from them because, they ran a lot of empty with DeAndre Swift out wide or in a slot or something, and he only got one target.
Mm-hmm.
The goal wasn't for him to get one target. The Titans just took away his targets and said, you got to beat us someplace else because we know that this is going to be a big part of your plan, and we're not going to let you do it. And the Bears just weren't able to capitalize on anywhere else because of it, like the next guy on my key players here, Rome Odunze. I felt like there were some shot options downfield for him. Like I thought it was in the plan, but they didn't formulate. I think one of them, was he one of the guys Caleb missed downfield?
I remember
were those both Keenan?
Yeah, I remember two Keenan. So again, one might have slipped my mind.
Okay, so this one was more of a miss then because I thought they were going to take a big shot to him downfield, and it never came together. Another one, I said Gervon Dexter. I thought he needed to find ways to one get after Will Levis, which he did a little, but more than that, I thought his ability to play clean run lanes and be able to maintain in run lanes was big. He did a pretty solid job of that in this game, which I think was a big factor to what they did, like in the second half, was stopping the run. But one thing that I noticed, and that I think is just going to be a constant battle throughout his career, last year, he was pretty abysmal against the run and run lanes by the second half of the year. And I think a big part of that was because the coaches told him, just attack, just go for the pass, like just play everything like it's a pass rush. And because that's what we need you to do. We need you to get after the quarterback. And if you get busted in a run lane, so be it. We pay these linebackers a lot of money to be clean in the run lanes. Now, I noticed in this game, he was playing the run lanes a lot better, but he wasn't getting off the football and pass rush as well. I think when he needs to worry about the run, when he needs to think about the run and process it, I just don't think the pass rush is going to be as clean. Because when the Bears were in clear passing situations on defense, he was on the field, he looked really nice. Like he got some explosion, got some disruption, but that was in the clear passing situations.
Yeah.
When it was a pass in a more neutral situation, he wasn't really getting anything. It was just kind of, he's there. He's tall. He can get his hand in the passing lane, but that was about all you really saw from it. So I'm curious to see throughout the season if that's something that progresses at all, or if that's just kind of going to be the player that he is, more of a pass rush threat on those pass downs. But when it's the neutral downs, he's really a run stuffer.
And I think we talked about it in the pregame, like Dexter's ceiling is what the Bears ceiling is. If he's able to all of a sudden, play in both situations and play well in both situations, that just makes this defense, which is already top, 6-7 in the league, in my opinion, arguably become top 3, top 4. And, games like today don't necessarily need to be a fluke game, but it could be sort of an expectation that, hey, Caleb, don't worry. Look, this defense takes care of you. Like, you're fine. Don't force anything. So a lot of that's going to have to do with Dexter and his continued development. I mean, it's been the story last year. It was certainly the story this offseason. And it looks like, we're not going to have instant results, at least from what we saw in week 1. So it'll be something for us to check in on week 4, week 6, and say, like, did this get better or not? Or, do we have to make an adjustment?
Yeah, and I'm really excited to go watch the tape on him, if I'm being frank, because I really want to get a closer look at how he did in those run lanes and was holding up, because I have this suspicion that he had plenty of power to do it last year, but his hands were never in position because he was just trying to shoot gaps and get after the passer. And I think with his hands in the right position, I thought he had enough power to be able to withstand. I mean, J2K in the comments saying he plays too tall at times. That's still probably true, but I think he has enough power to just get away with that as long as his hands are in position to get away with it. But that's where it starts to eat into his pass rush, because when he's worrying about getting his hands and reading, that's when he's not able to flip the switch to attack once he knows it's a pass play. It just kind of turns into him standing and holding ground and trying to get in the pass lanes. Last guy that we had here, Coleman Shelton. It was an important matchup, him and T'Vondre Sweat. And I don't want to be a dead horse. We've already talked a fair amount about it, but hopefully we see better things going forward. I think we will. Again, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro, Pro Bowler. I don't think he might be an above average player. But if you can get average to slightly below average from him, I'm content with that.
Yeah, a lot of the shows are going to make a really, really big deal about how the Titans invested in the center position and the Bears did not. I think it's too easy to make a validation after week one. Like you said, it was a really bad matchup. Let's see what happens in next week, the week after that. And that's when, like, if he continues to be overpowered by smaller guys, okay, well, now that's a conversation to have. But
he probably will be. But the hope is what he brings to your run game makes up that difference. Like, because he's really able to get out in space and attack really well. He's lighter. There's going to be 300-pound 3 techniques who might overpower him at times. He needs help from the guards, but the creativity he can bring to your run game is hopefully the differentiator there. And moving on to our next segment, let's get to it.
The baddest man.
The baddest man on the field. Sonny, who is the baddest man for the Bears today?
I've got a couple people in mind. The first one I'm going to say is Cairo Santos. Those points were clutch. I mean, he was going, I think he was against the wind in one of them. 50 and 48, we've gotten used to it because Santos is such a solid kicker, but those aren't easy kicks in Soldier Field. And can you imagine if he had missed one of them after how uneasy we had already been feeling?
Yeah.
To have given up those points, I think Cairo, I want to give him his flowers. Like, this happens to be one of those games where, obviously not many people on the offensive side really showed up. So I feel like if I have an opportunity to give Cairo the flowers for this game, I want to, because those points were clutch.
Yeah, no, I did not even consider that, if I'm being honest. And it makes a lot of sense. I like it. Those were not gimme kicks.
No,
those were in the wind. Like, I had messages from people who were at the game being like, that is not an easy kick that he just made. That is a, borderline 50-yarder into the wind in Soldier Field. It shows his worth, shows why he's paid what he's paid like that. That's a great answer, if I'm being frank. And it makes me wonder, does Torrey Taylor deserve some recognition too? Because he had a dang near perfect day.
Yeah, no, he had a great game too. I do wish that one punt where I think I tweeted something out. This is why you invest a 4th round pick on a punter. Didn't go as deep as I quite wanted it to. I think it ended up landing around the 10-yard line. Whereas, again, I watched his entire college career covering Big Ten football. And normally you're talking about within the 5-yard line, the guy receiving it has no room to go anywhere. This one, there was a comeback a little bit, but yeah, I mean, Cairo's just one of those guys where, I'm repeating myself now, but if he had missed even one of those, because up until that point, it's like we're making baby steps, but, a 3-point closer here, 3-point closer there. If our offense wasn't showing us anything, but it got us close enough and we missed the field goal, I really think the crowd, which we had a solid crowd, sold out crowd, that would have been deflated a little bit. Whereas it's a lot different when there's 6 extra points on the board.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. Now, for me, the baddest man, and to be clear, this is a new segment for us. We're talking about the guy, biggest difference maker, the guy who the other team is saying, that's a bad man right there. That's the baddest man. So I'm thinking, looking at it, like offensively, if I'm going to go with anyone, it's probably DeAndre Swift. But let's be honest, this isn't going to the offense today. This is going to the defense. Tyrique Stevenson was a candidate for me because of that pick six, and because he played good defense all game. It's not like guys were streaking wide open downfield anywhere. He did get burned once, and Levis missed the guy, but ultimately, very nice game from Tyrique. Second for me was Darrell Taylor.
That's what I thought you were going to say first.
It's close. Darrell Taylor looked like a dude today. Yeah. Now, this guy was a second-round pick for the Seahawks. He was in the top 40 pick, I believe. Freak athlete. There's a lot to like in his profile, but some flags that make you kind of question, does he have the processor? Is he going to figure this out? I'm not sure he can play the run all that well. But when you get him in pass rush situations, across from Montez Sweat and the attention that Sweat's taken, I'll tell you what, this dude was balling out today. But he's second. The first is the one, the only Andrew Billings, because the Bears do not figure out the run defense without Andrew Billings today. That was a man possessed in the second half. He was just picking people up and crushing them, eating them, chewing them up, spitting them out, and saying, "I'm Andrew freaking Billings. You can't run the football on me." Like that, he was the reason their run defense turned around, and he deserves his flowers because nose tackles are underappreciated in this league. They're underappreciated in the sport. Andrew Billings might be one of the best nose tackles in the NFC.
You're taking a look at I'm looking at the box score right now, and nothing jumps out at you. You look at the box score, what do you see? Is TJ Edwards 15 tackles, 2 for loss, Brisker 10 tackles, 5 solo tackles. But Billings has one of those game tape MVP type of performances. It's like you just had to watch and you had to be there. And if you were paying attention to it, you're right. Like he was in consideration for me as well, just because there was not many players. The defense itself played well, I think overall, obviously, especially in that second half. But I don't know which singular guy jumped out. And so I'm glad you saw the same thing I did. If I had to pick one guy who had the most impact, maybe not on the box score, but on the field, I think Billings was a fantastic choice.
Yeah, I think he's a deal, man. He's only making like $6 million a year or something. And last year he started out similar to this too. And I think there's wear that you take on as a nose tackle throughout the year. Like you are getting hit and crushed more than just about anybody, except for maybe a running back. And I think it does take a toll as the year goes on. But I'll tell you what, man, if he maintains this level of play, like I said, last year, it did dip some after the first few weeks because it's just going to most of the time. But when you start talking about special seasons, like you start talking about 2017, 2018 Akeem Hicks type seasons, where it's just like that guy is different. And that's how you feel with Andrew Billings when you watch him today. I'm hoping it carries through the rest of the year, but even if it doesn't, he's still a really good football player for your team. Now that we got the baddest man over, let's get to the next one.
The nicest man.
Sonny, who is your nicest man of the game? And
I don't want to do it.
In football, nice is we just had the baddest man segment. It's like the other team looks at him and goes, "That's a bad man right there." Like nicest man it's the guy the other team comes over to. They're like, "Hey man, you want to watch my dog for the weekend? Like, think you could help me out, pick me up from the airport? Like, that'd be really cool of you." Like,
I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it for the same reason I picked Cairo Santos. That I don't know if he's going to have many opportunities to be the baddest man. I'm hoping this is one of the few times this season that this gentleman's going to be considered in the nicest man. And I just have to say it, Caleb Williams. I just think he was just making way too many mistakes out there and just missed throws that, a couple throws going differently, this game could have been a lot different. All of a sudden, if he doesn't miss Keenan Allen in that first quarter on, I think, his second or third throw of the game, it's 7-0. The vibes of this game are much different. I think the pressure's off of him. He gets his first career passing touchdown out of the way. The crowd is eating it up. And the uneasiness that essentially happened over the next 2.5 quarters wouldn't necessarily be there anymore. If anything, the opposite happened. He continued to, again, make good throws, but not in the right spots. And so, this is my opinion on Caleb Williams hasn't changed at all. This is simply just a very bad game, which, you brought up the stats. I mean, you talk about, whether you're the first overall pick or not, rookie quarterbacks in your first NFL game, guess what? They struggle. And we were hoping Caleb wasn't going to be, one of those, but he was. But the positive is that we still came out with the W.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you said it so I don't have to, because like my list was, I had one guy and then I had Caleb Williams, parentheses, can you do that? Question mark, parentheses.
Right.
I didn't want to, but I needed to say something. So I mean, Caleb deserves this. I don't think he's going to deserve it a lot this year.
I hope not.
Like you said, my opinion largely has not changed from this game. I still believe he's the player that we saw for 40 games in college, but it was a little different today. And you move on. You learn from it.
Let me ask you a question, Q.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is obviously a pure hypothetical, and we're not. This is not clickbaity. This is a genuine conversation I want to have with you. I want to hear your thoughts at least. If Justin Fields was the quarterback today, just today, do you think that game goes any differently?
I don't think the Bears win this game with Justin Fields at quarterback.
Really? I actually think the opposite. I think Justin would have been, while Caleb stayed back there and tried to make throws, which is what a good quarterback does. I actually think today's the type of game where Justin Fields may have fared a little bit better. He would have found the holes, gotten past the Titans, and able to get us a couple more first downs, which Caleb just wasn't able to do. There was a lot of 3 and outs. A lot of 5-play drives. So in my opinion, actually, I think, again, this doesn't say, I think Caleb is the far superior quarterback, but I can't help to think that I had the Steelers game on one of the side TVs at the place I was watching. And I did, kind of peer over every now and then. I think today's the type of game where actually maybe we would have fared a little bit better on offense had Justin been the quarterback.
So as you're talking through that, I'm thinking more through it. So I think the Bears still probably win this game, but they're going to score more points on offense, I believe. But also, they're going to give the Titans more chances back in the game because
sure
on some of these blitzes, I just think Fields is going to he's going to give the football to the other team. He's going to be a little more like Will Levis was today, and I think if there's one thing I can sit here and say Caleb did well today, it was not giving the football up.
Yep.
And I don't know if I actually like that because Eberflus was saying in the post game that his new thing this year, last year was the 200 club or whatever, the 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, 0 sacks. His thing this year is end every drive with a kick, whether that's PAT, a field goal, or a punt. Don't turn it over. And I'm not sure I even like that because I want my rookie quarterback, in my mind, I'm just a guy on the internet. I'm just a guy who thinks he knows a thing or two about football. These coaches have forgotten more about than I will ever know. But to me, in my mind, I would want my rookie quarterback taking risks, finding out what he can do, what he can't do, and learning from it and not playing hesitantly. And I felt like Caleb was playing hesitantly today because he didn't want to turn the football over because that's what's been kind of put in his brain now. And I hope that is not something that is overbearing to him, or not to him, but overbearing to, or taking over kind of the other concepts of the offense, the other goals of the offense. I hope it's not, you can't turn it over because that'll hurt the defense. I want everything to be geared towards what's going to help Caleb the most.
And again, I alluded to it earlier. That's why I think that victory was so important. He knows now that, again, he doesn't have to force the play. If we lose today, he may be going back, looking at game tape and be like, I should have just made this throw and seen what happened. It's something we're kind of used to with what Fields did. As you mentioned it, as J2K's latest comment says, like, you had your ups and downs with Justin Fields. With Caleb, you kind of know what you're getting with him. Yeah, sometimes the excitement level might not be as high because you don't have that 65-yard rush for a touchdown after he escapes 2 or 3 sacks. But you also have a 3-and-out as opposed to all of a sudden an interception and the Titans start the ball on your side of the field.
Yeah. Like, I think Fields takes 5+ sacks today. He might make up some of that with some of the running or hitting. Like, he hits some of those deep shots without a doubt. Like, there's no issue with him hitting a few of those deep shots. But on one of those 3, he probably takes a sack. Or maybe on another one of those 3, he breaks it on a run. It's really hard to project that. But it's interesting. It's an interesting question. And J2K again in the comments saying he thought Roschon should have played this game. There were several times needed short yards and was Swift, Herbert, Homer. Yeah, I thought Roschon was interesting and active. I mean,
did we hear anything?
I mean, he missed a lot of camp, so I'm assuming it's more playbook related why he was inactive. That he hasn't digested enough of it yet. I'm sure he'll get there. Everything you hear about Jaylon Johnson is an A+ guy in the locker room. So I'm not worried about that. I don't think it's a great sign. Like, I think that ultimately, I think Waldron really values the explosiveness in a running back room, and that's something that Roschon is just kind of missing. But in the short yardage, it would be nice to have a guy who's just going to barrel through like that. Now, for my nicest man, we've already talked about him a bunch, but Coleman Shelton, I'm rooting for you. I'm pulling for you.
I'm surprised.
The odds were against you today in every way, but you didn't it didn't feel like you overcame it very many times either. And again, as I said, Coleman Shelton blocking Tavondre Sweat is akin to Deebo Samuel trying to block Javon Dexter. It's just it's just different. But at the end of the day, I wanted to see a little more from you, and that matchup just really impacted this game on such a high level. If you hadn't said Caleb Williams, I would have mentioned him anyways. But Coleman Shelton ultimately was my guy there. Now, Sonny, one more thing before we wrap this thing up. What was your favorite play of this game?
Favorite play? Honestly, the Jonathan Owens. I mean, that happening turned everything around. Again, like that made us down, for 2 touchdowns. Like, oh my gosh, where are we going to come up with 14 points from what we've seen from this offense? I don't know if they're capable of putting up a couple touchdowns. But Jonathan Owens returns it for a touchdown. All of a sudden, we're only down 1 touchdown. And I think I mentioned this earlier. All of a sudden, I'm like, hey, we can do 1. We played an awful game, and we're only down 1 touchdown. Our offense can get us 1 touchdown. Spoiler alert, they couldn't. But, the rest of the team took their business. So, I think that kind of turned the whole game around. Because, again, up until then, everyone was like, oh, my gosh, here we go again. Not this again. We watched the same exact team last year. Yeah, but, that's my pick.
For me, it was and I'm going defense, but man, it's hard. It's a hard choice between the strip sack and the pick six for me. And I know the pick six got us the lead, and that was like the hammer that was like they did it. But I was so down in the dumps over stuff, like in denial. I'm a big denier. I'm like, it's fine. It'll be fine. But at the same time in my head, I'm like, what if it's not? And then Darrell Taylor flies in there after we just got an ounce of hope, right, from the block kick. And then it was like just a little bit later, Darrell Taylor comes in there, smashes Will Levis, gets the ball loose, gets recovered by the Bears defense. Boom. Bears are right. They're within striking distance now. And like you said, it was like, it's possible. Like they're down by 1 point. Like, okay, the offense just needs to get us a field goal. Let's go. Like I was that play. I audibly yelled so loud that my dog woke up and jumped off the couch. Like
Yeah, I mean, I like the pick six too. And when you asked me the question, that was one of the first one that jumped out of my mind. But for some reason at that point, because I had seen enough of Will Levis, I kind of thought we were going to win at that point. You know, right before that Jonathan Owens play, that's when I was feeling what you were feeling. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You know, we're down 17-3. Our offense has been non-existent. Caleb, now I'm going to have to deal with a week's worth of is Caleb a bust from my buddies, you know, all that. The pick six was a great play, but it was also Will Levis being Will Levis. And for me, in my opinion, they were going to go 3 and out. They were going to make a bad play anyway. We were going to get the ball back, and Cairo was going to hit a game-winning field goal. That's where my mindset was. That's why I just knocked it down. But your Daryl Taylor pick is a good one too.
And I love the pick six because I was in the pregame. I said, this is going to be within 1 touchdown, and the ball will be in Will Levis's hands.
Oh, that's right.
And he won't get it done. I feel great about that. For the other stuff that I missed, I want to call out that hit because that one felt just right.
You're right. I forgot about that, but you're right. You absolutely did say that.
But Sonny, any final thoughts on this? You know, I only hit so many, so I gotta live them up when I do. But and you guys let me know. Make sure to let me know when I miss. But Sonny, any final thoughts on this game before we get out of here?
No, and also in the chat, let us know if you guys are watching this not live. Let us know what your favorite play was. You know, is there a play that Q and I are missing out on? You know, you guys watch the game as well, so we want your feedback. Ultimately, 1-0 is 1-0, and that, you know, we talked about this. It's a must-win, not must-win game. You know what I mean? Now we're going to Houston. Did Houston end up winning? They were winning last I checked.
I believe they did.
You know, a strong contender out in the AFC. You talked about the schedule for the Bears early in the year. If we didn't win this game against the Tennessee Titans, like, things could have gotten bleak real quick, especially with the way Caleb had played this entire game. But I'm hoping and I'm rationalizing in my head that we had one of our poorest offensive performances that we're going to have this all season long. We didn't score a single offensive touchdown, and we scored 24 points. We came out with the W. In years past, we would have played a better game and still come out with the loss. And so I'm going to remain optimistic. I think that now we're going to have some game tape. Caleb really got a chance to feel the speed and the power of what a real NFL defense looks like. And so for me, I'm positive. I think we're on our way up.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And final thoughts here. I mean, I will say to J2K, who mentioned in the comments that no one's talking about Booker's play today. He didn't flash in the pass game and let Pollard score. My ultimate thought on that is he's a 5th-round rookie. It was a fun preseason. There's upside, but it's going to take some time.
I was going to say that too. I think Booker is a prominent player in 2025, 2026. Right now, it looks like he's a really good draft pick by Ryan Poles. But just because he was performing the way he did in the preseason, he wasn't going up against the type of players that he faced up against today. He still needs some time to develop, to get a little bit bigger. But I'm still super high on Booker.
Yeah, no, I'm still excited about his future, though. Final thought from me, Tennessee, you let him off the hook. All right, Sonny, why don't we get out of here with a good old-fashioned bear down?
Bear down, Q.
All right, thank you guys for listening. Make sure to go check out ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports needs, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.